Hello and welcome to our latest mini module focused on SEL for educators. My name is Lindsey and on behalf of Transforming Education, thanks for tuning in to check out this latest module. So as I mentioned, this is the 5th out of 6 mini modules focused on educator SEL and related to our SEL for Educators Toolkit. This module will focus on the high leverage practice of orienting towards optimism. Now, if you haven't checked out the first module yet, I encourage you to close out of this one and go check that out. That's an overview giving the what, the why, and the how of SEL for educators, which really provides the base and the framing for the subsequent mini modules. But if you have checked that out already and are ready, we're going to dig into this one. Orient towards optimism. So, optimistic thinking refers to an individual's attitude of confidence, hopefulness, and positive thinking regarding themselves and their life situations in the past, present, and future. Optimism is considered a key protective factor for supporting health, joy, amusement, awe, and happiness, while also decreasing anxiety and depression. And so clearly, based on just this brief bit of information, we see how optimism can elevate the positive aspects of one's life and can decrease some of the stressful and negative elements of one's life. And so if we can really sort of cultivate that feeling of optimism and bring an optimistic mindset to the work we're doing in schools, it benefits not only ourselves, but also the interactions we have with others. So when we think about orienting towards optimism, based on all of the research that we did and synthesizing from a number of different sources, we sort of boiled it down to these 3 sub-strategies: recognizing the negativity bias, reframing and retraining the brain, and practicing gratitude. And one thing we want to mention here is orienting towards optimism does not mean ignoring all the incredibly stressful, challenging, and negative things happening in the world. It does not involve turning a blind eye to injustice, inequities, and struggles that are happening, but rather bringing an optimistic, hopeful was the word used in the last slide, viewpoint to addressing many of those challenges and moving forward from there. So one incredibly important strategy is recognizing the negativity bias. And many of us may recognize this in ourselves, or may after we talk a little bit about it, in that you can go through an entire day and tons of positive things can happen, but we tend to really hyper-focus on that one negative thing that happened, the one tough interaction we had, or the one thing that didn't go the way we had hoped for. And this relates to the fact that our brains have a bias towards negativity. We consistently scan for bad news, overreact to it, and then commit it to memory. But this is actually a survival mechanism rooted in our evolution. So that hypervigilance, the state of increased alertness in response to negative stimuli, produces more neural activity than does equally intense positive stimuli. So our brain is trained to really focus on that negative stimuli. Adults who are aware of their own negativity bias are more able to counteract it by elevating moments of positivity and joy from themselves, as well as their students, colleagues, and families. And so again, we want to think about when assessing a situation, reflecting on our practice, our classroom experiences, our interactions, where are we sort of overemphasizing the negative, and where can we zoom out, sort of collect and really build on more of those positive experiences, again, both for ourselves as educators, but also for all the other individuals we're working with. The next strategy we've sort of named reframe and retrain the brain. So by directing attention to the positive experiences, as we were just discussing, and applying specific strategies, one can sort of retrain the brain to better detect this positivity, thereby committing to one's memory that emotional and physical response to the positive experiences. So the first step is really just recognizing that we have this negativity bias, saying, oh, I'm hyper-focused on the negative again. It's okay. My body and brain are trained to do that. This next step is really about reframing and retraining and saying, okay, I know that I was focusing on the negative. What can I do now? How can I reorient to sort of highlight the positive and commit that to memory as well, and then model that for others? So the last strategy connected to a specific way to sort of elevate the positives is the idea of practicing gratitude. And gratitude is a process or practice that can be both intrapersonal, recognizing positive outcomes that one has achieved, or interpersonal, recognizing external sources of positive outcomes. And practicing gratitude can foster physical, psychological, and social benefits, all positive things in the school setting. It's associated with increased happiness, strengthened relationships, decreased anxiety and depression, and increased motivation. And gratitude practices are associated with other physical things such as improved sleep, lower blood pressure, and strengthened immune systems. So again, we want educators to be happy, healthy, whole individuals. And the simple practice of gratitude can really benefit in all of those areas, helping one sleep better, having a better immune system, increasing happiness, decreasing anxiety, all of these things. And so that's the simple act of practicing gratitude, noticing what we're grateful for, what we appreciate, and then engaging in activities to really sort of make that more concrete, again, as a way to retrain and reframe the brain to those positive experiences, all working towards like creating this orientation towards optimism. And so considering those three strategies we just discussed, let's pause and process. So we talked about recognizing the negativity bias, reframing and retraining the brain, and practicing gratitude, all as ways to orient towards optimism. And so first thing we're going to do to process is just consider the last 24 hours, or even your last waking hours, however much that might be. And ask yourself, can you identify 3 positive things that happened? And just notice what happens when you ask yourself that. Is the first thing that popped into your mind something positive? Was it something negative? How long does it take you to come up with 3 positive things that happened in the last day? You can see that connection there to recognizing the negativity bias. Then of these 3 strategies, recognizing the negativity bias, reframing and retraining the brain, practicing gratitude, which do you feel that you've already done a good amount of work on and you feel pretty confident about the way it shows up in your practice? Maybe you already have a gratitude practice that you engage in with other colleagues or your students. Maybe you already talk about the negativity bias amongst your staff or in meetings. Which one do you feel pretty confident on? And then conversely, which of these 3 strategies do you feel like you could put more energy and focus into? Which one would you like to develop a little bit more and bring more into your practice as an educator? So taking that time to pause and process after receiving that information helps it become more internalized so we can then generalize and apply in other settings. And so if you'd like to learn more about this high leverage practice of orienting towards optimism, or any of the other 5 high leverage practices we outline in our toolkit, we strongly encourage you to visit this link and check out the toolkit in its entirety. There you can download the entire professional learning presentation from which these slides were pulled. the companion guide, which gives great specific activities for practicing these different strategies we talked about. So there's a number of ways to practice gratitude, a number of ways to practice retraining and reframing things in the brain. So you can really interact with and engage in some of those to develop those skills. This snapshot in our toolkit is a quick one-pager that summarizes the 5 high leverage practices and their corresponding strategies. And then lastly, you receive a very comprehensive list of resources in our reference list. So we highly encourage you to check out the toolkit in its entirety if you haven't done so already. And as you wait for the last of the 6 mini modules to be released soon, we encourage you to check out our other resources on our website listed here, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social media. We have lots of tools coming out all the time, so it's great to check back and subscribe to that newsletter to see the latest and greatest coming out of transforming education. And as always, if you have any questions or can provide feedback on this tool or any others, we encourage you to reach out, send us an email. We love to hear from you all. So until next time, when we will release, as I said, the 6th and final mini module focused on SEL for educators, we hope you can put some of this into practice as you work with students, staff, and families. Until next time, be well.